Welcome in. This is your full-on Ryder Cup preview via our friends over at Odds Checker. I'm Rick Gehman, my usual partner in crime right there, Geoff Fienberg. It's about that time, Geoff. Ryder Cup season. Let's go.
I am super fired up for it. It makes for great TV. It adds a different element to golf, Rick, that all of us who love sports so much and we all have our favorite teams is the key word, to bring that element into golf, change up the vibe, the crowds. I am all here for it for this event.
As excited as I am to hear Geoff's takes about the Ryder Cup, I am equally as excited to hear from Tom Jacobs. Tom, we were able to coordinate schedules. We are in 3 different time zones right now, the 3 of us. We were able to figure it out, and I'm stoked to have you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. I know it's been it's difficult to work these things out, but I'm super stoked to be on.
Well, let's start with Team Europe, because we got the 3 captains picks from Paddy Harrington. He goes with Sergio Garcia, Ian Poulter, and of course Shane Lowry to round out the team that we have kind of been seeing taking shape over the last couple of weeks and months. So Tom, when you look at this squad, any surprises here, any concerns about how they might set up for Whistling Straits?
So I think that the concerns that I have are the guys that got in on merit, which is always a bit of a concern. The 3 captains picks kind of pick themselves. I think Ian Poulter is going to go if he's got 2 arms. Sergio Garcia has been pretty elite all season in terms of ball striking. And Shane Lowry was, he was bound to get in. So I think they're pretty solid picks. I think that Justin Rose will feel hard done by, and rightly so. I mean, he's a good fit for this golf course. Played well right up at the last minute, but maybe left himself too much to do.
Yeah, there was probably going to be an odd man out, Geoff, when Bernd Wiesberger got in, when Matthew Fitzpatrick, when his slot was kind of solidified. There was kind of going to be one odd man out, whether it was Lowry, whether it was Sergio Garcia, as Tom mentioned. Ian Poulter was going to be here. Are you surprised to see that it's Jay Rose on the outside looking in?
Based on how the automatic selections worked out, I wasn't surprised. I think Justin Rose had to have been cheering against, say, a Lee Westwood or a Matthew Fitzpatrick, but Shane Lowry felt like an auto pick. Felt like a course that does suit him, a former recent major champion, I should say. Rose, as Tom mentioned, probably feels hard done by. He left himself too much of a hill to climb. Sergio Garcia made it to Eastlake. On the toughest tour in the world, he made it to the final 30 Tour Championship. That's, in my opinion, automatically got him one of those spots. And Ian Poulter, he's alive, he's playing.
and I think also with Ian Poulter as well is that despite the fact that the concerns are going to be the course fit, right, and they're valid. I'm slightly concerned myself. Might be one too far, but the way he plays on the PGA Tour on a tour that doesn't suit his style of play. He's a throwback to the original European Tour player, and his form is pretty good. His ball striking is flashing quite a lot. So I do think he's so stubborn he'll probably win his singles match or at least half it. But I'm a bit worried about him in team play.
When you look at this team here, Geoff, and there are going to be some of these guys that we know will end up playing together, but when you start to try to piece together who's going out an alternate shot, who gets the opportunity to play with the guy that I'm most excited about, Viktor Hovland, right? I mean, what do some of these pairings look like? Do you think that these guys are going to be able to mesh? And really, what we've seen from recent history is it doesn't really matter. These guys are going to find a way to mesh.
They somehow always find a way to mesh, as we have found out over the last couple runs. They deep dive the analytics. For as much as the Americans and all their faults, we speak about how they're not a team, how they don't get along. Europe, it's not like they pick teammates to be friends or to go in pairings. Analytics are picking their pairings, and they just have a better way, I guess, of going about it and being cohesive. My biggest questions would be, a guy like Jon Rahm, do you send him out with, say, a Viktor Hovland or a other top tier player, or do you try to balance and lengthen your lineup as much as you possibly can if you are Team Europe as well, Rick? I think there's at least 4 to 5 guys on this team who we could see in 5 straight sessions, and they've probably been told that. Rory McIlroy has never not played, it feels like, every single session in the last handful of Ryder Cups. So they're really going to depend on about 4 or 5 guys to go all 5.
That's what I think is really interesting, Tom. I think Geoff brings up a fabulous point. Not only is this team, to me, incredibly top heavy, Hovland, Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, whatever, wherever you want to draw that line, but they're not, they're not spring chickens. The rest of this team is older, right? They're kind of on, maybe this is the last time we see some of these guys in Ryder Cups after really great, long, illustrious careers. Could you even run some of these guys out there 5 times? I think that's the algebra that Team Europe is going to have to figure out here.
Yeah, and I mean, Geoff makes a good point in the sense that I've been quite emotional in the picks that I wanted to go out. I mean, Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy made the most sense in the world to send out. I want to see John Rahm and Victor Hovland in a pairing. I want them to go out as a super team and get that point. Come up against a JT and a Spieth, something like that, Xander and Cantlay. I want them in. But like you say, do you have to balance them out? Do you have to split them up so those 3, share the load? Interesting enough, those 3 would be the guys that are prime candidates for 5 matches. I really, really like Paul Casey to go the distance, and he's never done it before. He never plays that many matches. I think he's been criminally underused. He's never really been used in foursomes. I think he's played 2 matches, but this guy, is playing at an elite level, and has been for quite some time now. Got some good course history. I think he's a 12th and a 30th in the PGA Championships. Played the PGA Championship this year very well at Kiawah on a long course. US Open's very strong record. So, and I think people don't remember he was sent out as a rookie against Tiger Woods game 1 in 2004. That's how much faith they got in him as a match play player. So I'm surprised he's not used as foursomes. I think he goes again with Tyrrell Hatton on the Friday morning, but they didn't use him in foursomes in Paris, so it'd be interesting.
And he should be well rested. I mean, he played in the Olympics. He only teed up 3 other times after that. Should be ready to rock and roll. Geoff, as we turn our attention to the American squad, let's start with this, because Steve Stricker got 6 captain's picks this year. Is that a gift or a curse in a year like this where you had to actually hand select half the squad?
Yeah, the U.S. might find out that could be more of a curse than a gift to have that much input, sort of let the guys on merit fight for these spots, because it seemed like a lot of the conversation talking points of changing up how this thing might be done involved a lot of players that none of us really felt should have been on this team, be it your Na or be it your Kisner. I think we're past those arguments. So I'm going to say it was a curse. That being said, from player cohesion to captain's picks to on-course decision, I think Stricker's got 3.5 mulligans, Rick.
You might not be wrong. This team, incredibly deep, incredibly good. But I'll tell you what, Tom, you know what we have not talked about with this American team? How they set up for the course, who's really going to be paired with who. We've spent a lot of oxygen talking about Brooks versus everyone else, Bryson versus Brooks. Do these guys like each other? Is Morikawa's back okay? Like, there's just so much other non-golf conversation when you talk about the American team. I start to get worried, and maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe Geoff is right. Maybe this team is just so much more talented. It's not going to matter, but I get worried.
And I think that's what they rely on, right? The talent just takes over. And I think a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. I mean, I heard an interview with Harris English yesterday, and he was basically saying that as far as he's concerned, Brooks and Bryson have buried the hatchet. He expects something to come out publicly between them. I guess that's probably just the right thing to say. But I think, Bryson, all the talk was like, who can he play with, right? He's not going to play foursomes. People are not used to playing from his drives. He's not going to play anybody else's ball. He's so concerned about that. So, just use him in 4 balls, wheel him out with Tony Finau, let them to bomb it away. And I think he'll be fine. I think he could be important.
My sneaky little hunch is that he plays the first alternate shot, the first foursomes match, because I think, Geoff, that there's going to be 1, 2, or 3 guys on this team that are like, oh, wow, I'm going to get to play from Bryson's drives. Let's go. Let's do it. And if they win, they'll continue. But I think they got to give it one shot.
I am banking on, my wallet is banking on so much being overblown about this team. And a lot is being put on Bryson and Brooks on that note. but they did what they felt they had to do in the captain's picks by leaving out a player who many of us thought that deserved to be there. But on top of that, guys, I think it is from the Cantley and Bryson having beef. I think that's so overblown.
Yes.
And you nailed it, Rick. I think it's a little overrated how bad of an alternate shot partner Bryson might be, or how bad of a partner he might be in general. I think that you can make a case guys could be clamoring to play with him. It's Jordan Spieth is a world-class player, but you could be partnered with Jordan Spieth in alternate shot and be hitting it from the middle of nowhere. That's not fun. You're not used to that if you're Justin Thomas or whoever's going to get that draw. So that's always a part of alternate shot. And I believe a lot of that is being overblown. I think Bryson's probably easier to partner than people believe.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And Jordan Spieth is just as neurotic and hard to deal with as Bryson DeChambeau is with the mannerisms and everything like that. But let's look at the grid here, because odds are out. We've got the teams finalized. Essentially, across the board, the United States team is the favorite to win. They are as short as -200 at DraftKings. Caesars currently hanging the best number on the U.S. team at -187, and then there is kind of an industry standard of +200 for the European team. And this, of course, does include the draw, which is 12-1. So, Tom, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe the European squad has won 7 of 9, something like that. And I imagine that they were underdogs in every single one of them. I mean, is this another opportunity to get value on a European Ryder Cup team?
So I think there maybe one year we weren't favourites. We were favourites, but I think when you look at it, right, and you had Hazeltine, and we got it handed to us, and Medina should have been the same, right? I think that's the thing, is that people probably, because it gets blown up as a miracle, Medina, and I think it's forgetting how well we did to come back in that, in that arena. So I think really you should be looking at the fact that you won your last 3, if you include this on American soil. So I just, the emotional pick is to pick Europe and just go with history. But I think that just the course fit is just, I really like Sergio, and I think he's a massive part of this team. But you look at his course form, this, here, I think he's got 2 missed cuts and a 54th. So it's not great. And that's across 2004, 2010, 2015. He's not playing badly all of those years. So yes, there's going to be so many guys clamoring to take, Europe at +200, but I would be pretty nervous.
Yeah, here's the to lift the trophy number. So this removes the option for a tie. Europe is +150. The United States still at Caesars -187. And Geoff, here we go again. The United States team, they're the favorites. They get to set up the course. They get to be kind of in control of this whole thing. Is the juice worth the squeeze here?
I love this event so much, Rick. It's a TV event. It does go over 3 days, but it has like a major type feel for me and my TV interest and my tentpole event feel. And I can't help myself but want to make a wager, want to make a sizable one. I have always bet Europe. I've never not bet Europe in a Ryder Cup. Never. I've had a lot of fun doing it. There's been profit. I also made a losing bet knowing I was making one going into Hazeltine and took it on the chin because I felt I had to. This time I don't feel like I have to. I want more stories to come out about dysfunction in the next few days. I'd like to see that 187 get a little shorter. But if I have to lay -200, I will. Because as I've told you before, Rick, and everybody, I feel it's not fair that this group is going to wear the sins of Phil and Tiger. Dustin is the only long-standing player on this team. This is a new wave of American golf, in my opinion, and the roster shows it. The Ryder Cup experience shows it. I think this group wants to flip that narrative on this golf course. It sets up perfectly for them to not just beat Europe, but in my opinion, there's a strong possibility they completely overwhelm them.
Tom, you were nodding along to most of that until I think we got to the overwhelming part. But is that the bet to make? Is there one bet to make, and is it the American team?
I think so. I think that, look, I put a tweet out yesterday, and it got a little bit, people got upset that I said that
Colin,
basically
when you tweet about the Ryder Cup, people get upset. It doesn't really matter what it is. I have learned that people get upset.
and I basically said that you could just say that most of Team USA have had zero interest in the Ryder Cup. And what I meant by that was that it's not a priority to them. This was off the back of what Brooks Koepka said. I think a lot of people felt like that. You had Tiger, you had Mickelson, they had their own games to focus on. And they've, like you said, they've lost 7 of the 9. Why would they have any fun going there? There was zero upside to winning the Ryder Cup. They were expected to do it. If they didn't, they were criticised. If they did win, it was like, okay, well, you've done your job. I think this time around, getting the win that they so richly, probably deserve this time around based on their talent, based on, just overcoming the expectation, I think is massive for them. Geoff's spoken about the guys on the team now are not part of that failing system. You've got Xander and Cantlay. I think it'd be a great pairing. JT and Spieth are going to do what they do, and that's just scratching the surface. Finau was brilliant in Paris, and he's just got that win again. He's going to be super pumped. Bryson could do absolutely anything, and I didn't really consider that Bryson people would clamour to play with him, but it makes sense. I kind of looked at it as people would be like, "Oh, I don't know how to hit it from that kind of distance, and I don't want to be responsible." But maybe they do just fancy the chance of being closer.
Yeah, I think you're going to find 1 or 2 guys that are going to love hitting a lot of wedges into these greens. Maybe not wedges, but you get my point. One of the things before we get out of here is I want to talk through. This has to be my favorite bet. The top scorer from each team. So I've got the American squad listed up top here, and of course, this is the grid from oddschecker.com. You're going to really need to. You're going to have to go visit this. It's the perfect. Tool because you're able to kind of see the different odds across different places. So Justin Thomas, essentially the shortest odds to be the top American point scorer. There is an assumption that he is going to play all 5 sessions, and he's one of the best players out there. That makes sense. But then they line up behind it, Geoff. It's Dustin Johnson at plus 750, Jordan Spieth and Patrick Cantlay also 7.5 to 1. Those are your shorter odds. Is there a bet to be made there, or would you prefer to kind of find one of the more intriguing options further down the board at longer odds?
Yeah, I mean, I did look down the board, and I think the books haven't adjusted to a couple situations. I think by the time we get here, like Brooks Koepka is going to be 12, 13, 14, whether he's being nursed back from his injury, Rick, or just the system they're going to set up for him. I've already said it. Brooks is going to go out last every day. He's a star. You let your star player hopefully be in a conducive situation. It's not when you go out last, you don't got to watch other people play. You got all day to lift and do your routine. He's going to anchor. He's going to anchor this thing, and he loves the pressure of each day. These sessions can flip with how those last matches end. I think he's never going to have to play someone else's ball, so that's already limiting his sessions. So he would be a total fade for me, but I still think in the 2 or 3 matches he does play, he's going to be a horse. That being said, my favorite bet on this board, Olympic gold medalist Xander Schauffele. I understand why Justin Thomas would be at the top. I expect him to play 5 sessions. Jordan Spieth and him could play 4 together. But I've long said I think the other captain of this team is Xander Schauffele. And I believe him and Cantlay could be the team that I project to catch absolute fire, be the stormers of this one. And of all 4 guys that I expect to play the most on USA, he's got the biggest odds. Sign me up for that plus 850 on Xander, top scorer or top point getter. Yeah.
8.5 to 1 at FanDuel. That is the best odds according to the odds checker grid. There is something interesting, Tom, and I completely agree with Geoff. I think you got to kind of stick to the guys are going to play 5 sessions. If you kind of venture from that, you're already behind the 8 ball. I know we talk a lot about Bryson DeChambeau, but I'm telling you, Tom, the sense that I get from this team is if Bryson starts hot, they're running him out. He'll be Captain America. This is Bryson's chance to earn back the U.S. Faithful to get everybody on his side. If he starts 2-0, they're not taking him out of this thing. I could see him playing twice. I could see him playing 5 times. I think he's a wild card here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I really like Xander as well. I think that the difference between him and Cantlay, I think, is I trust Xander probably to win his singles match more than I do Cantlay, just because I think Cantlay can get cold with the putter more so than Xander can. But it's interesting what you say about Bryson because, I hadn't really considered the theory of him playing that Morning Foursomes match. And if he does, and like you say, he plays well, then yeah, I mean, look, this guy, it's underrated still, which is amazing. No matter how much we talk about him, is how good he is, how good of a putter he is. Yes, he's a bit wild off the tee every now and then, but generally speaking, I mean, he was just striping it at the BMW, and it's just, why would you take him out if he's running hot?
Tom, the thing that you said earlier, you could make a case that the guys don't care about this. The US guys don't care about this. You know, the one guy who cares the most, the one guy who absolutely will do whatever for this team, it's Bryson DeChambeau.
And that's because, and I think that the players thing is overblown. I think the players generally get on all right with him. When you see, JT's fine, laughing at him in the fairways. I don't think the likes of DJ and Brooks really care. The other guys, the other guys are fine with him. So I think that kind of team chemistry thing is overblown. But there is a lot of people that he's going to want to prove wrong. He wants to come out here and be the American darling. He was as an amateur. People used to love Bryson when he first came along. They loved it, and it's only he somehow, with his little bit of antics every now and then, somehow got on the wrong side of people, and he can draw it back here. I agree.
He can flip the script this week. You're absolutely right, Rick. I guess it all depends if he goes out early. They might not want to start that way.
Right.
But that would be interesting. I do agree guys will be lining up to play a 4-ball with him. Like, let him be the Kraken and I can just try to pin stock from the fairway. I think a lot of guys would have no issues getting that draw. I want us to, before we leave this USA thing, a lot's been made of the Brooks comments, and he's such a hard guy to figure out because he talks about this whole routine and it's screwing him up and everything. But at the same time, he's like, I love trash talking in golf. I don't mind noise in golf. Let's get rowdy at golf. It's like everyone has to change their routine for this, but he wants this stuff that Ryder Cup brings to be more part of golf. So I don't know. It's just another week, and Brooks is talking out of both sides of his mouth again.
It's really fascinating at this point. Let's flip to the European side. There are shorter odds here for the two big names at the top. Jon Rahm, 4-1 at BetMGM. Rory McIlroy, 5.5-1 at a couple places. BetMGM, Caesars, Borgata. And then you can see longer odds here. And Tom, when you start to see, especially compared to the US squad, these odds are getting longer. Is this because odds makers, outside of maybe Rahm and McIlroy, they're not really sure who's playing the most? They're not sure. Or is that because Europe's going to ride the hot hand? There's nobody to trust. What's the deal here?
I think it's exactly that, Rick. I think that Rahm and Rory are the only two certainties to play 5 matches. Even Rahm was so underused in Paris, even just 3 years ago. But he will be the main man. Rory is always going to be the main man. But the way I sort of thought about this process is there's 3, maybe 4 guys that I completely trust at the moment on the European side. And it is Jon Rahm, Victor Hovland, Paul Casey. Rory McIlroy is even going through some swing changes. I know he's flashed from form recently and it's working well. But for me, I mean, I would really look at that Paul Casey number and you kind of want to hear what comes out during the week and whether they're going to play him enough. But to me personally, just the way he's been in match play over his career, just the way he's been playing, I don't think he's ever played this well tee to green. I know he's been a perennial winner on the European Tour, but I just think now is just the time to let Paul Casey shine because it's the perfect golf course for him. He's well suited to PGA tracks. And I think that, you see Tommy Fleetwood there shorter than him. And I don't think Tommy Fleetwood is going to play as much. He hasn't got Francesco Molinari here. He's not in the form that he was in. So someone's got to fill that gap. Paul Casey, I think, can play 4 balls with Bernd Wiesberger. I think they're keen to get him involved. So I think that there's a real opportunity for him to be a leading light in, because Rahm will deliver points. Rory will deliver points. Victor, you just don't know quite how he's going to get paired. And that's a little bit of concern, but he should play 5 matches as well.
Paul Casey 10-1 at a couple of different places, including Caesars and Unibet and Bet365 to be the top European point scorer. Geoff, when you start to assess this board, I see that Ian Poulter is 12-1. I see the Tommy Fleetwood number was kind of interesting to me as well, 8.5. Is there anyone that you would take a nibble on?
I mean, I think we're all sort of zoning in on the same guys. Once you decide, you can make your decision on Rahm. You have to decide who in that second tier, right? It is that Casey, Fleetwood, Hatton, even Lowry, I think I would include on that when ranking this team. Who on that second tier has the chance to be that magic man and ride it for them? And I think Paul Casey is a great suggestion by Tom. He's convinced me on air and off air. And the other one that I could potentially just try to sneakily think could get there is if they do go, which we do assume, Rory, Shane Lowry, that Ireland pairing, and they catch hot fire, Lowry is just going to be riding the wind of Rory to an incredible points record and potential max sessions. But I think overall I would lean Casey over Lowry. And again, if I could get any word, if they're going to put Victor in a power pairing, then Victor at 750 all day.
And I think that's the thing, I have convinced you on Paul Casey. I've convinced myself on Paul Casey, which is dangerous in golf, right? But the thing is, if Paul Casey, there is question marks about where he's going to be played. Does he play those foursomes that he's historically not played in? So Shane Lowry, like you say, it all boils down to if he gets that hot start. We talked about Bryson DeChambeau. If he starts first thing Friday morning in that foursomes and him and Rory win, they are not getting split up throughout the week. And although I think he's potentially a loser in the singles because I don't think that many players are favoured in the singles, I think 4 points could be enough. And if Rory can, help him to that, then all the better.
I expect Rom to be thrown out first. I expect Rom to be thrown out first almost every session. And I think Stricker knows that. And every U.S. pairing is a power pairing. I wouldn't be surprised if Stricker throws out Justin and Jordan or Xander and Cantley, match one, go, or whatever Stricker considers to be his power pairing, in full expectation that he's getting the number one player on the world in the first tee on Friday morning. So that makes Rom could just, I'm saying, potentially being the best player, he's going to have a lot of tough matchups. Not to say there's any easy matchup on Europe, but if I'm trying to if I'm Stricker, I'm trying to figure out where Potty's putting him, and I'm giving him the hardest match possible every time.
You guys are getting me too fired up for this. We are closing in very quickly on this thing kicking off. I cannot wait to see how it all shakes out. We're going to put a pin in it for now, but plenty more Ryder Cup conversation to come. Big thanks, Tom Jacobs. Tom, much appreciated. Always fun to get to chat. Thank you for coming on. That right there, that's Geoff Fienberg. We'll be back early and often for the next however long it takes. But for now, that'll do it for this Ryder Cup preview, and we'll talk soon.